Are we all doing well?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's reading. It is really genuinely a pleasure to have you all here. And after the reading, I just want to let you guys know that over there we're going to have a book signing, and we're also going to have a following Q&A where you can ask the author anything that your little heart desires. So, my name is Jessica Ford, and I'm a psychology major here at Berry College, but I also have a creative writing minor. And tonight it is my privilege to introduce you to poet and essayist Patrick Rosal. He is the author of 5 full-length poetry collections, including Uprock, Headspin, Scramble, and Dive in 2003, which was the winner of the Members' Choice Award from the Asian American Writers Workshop. He also wrote Kundiman from 2006, which received the Poetry Prose Award from the Association for Asian American Studies. He also wrote Brooklyn Antediluvian, I think, is that pronounced that correctly? Okay, sorry. I Googled that earlier, but I don't think I got it. And that was in 2016, and that was the winner of the 2017 Lenore Marshall Poetry Prize. And then he wrote my personal favorite, The Last Thing, which is New and Selected Poems. That was in 2021, which was the winner of the William Carlos Williams Book Award from the Poetry Society of America. His poems and essays have been published widely in journals and anthologies, including the New York Times, which I know we've all heard of, Tin House, the New England Review, American Poetry Review, Harvard Review, Breck Poets, and the Best American Poetry, and many more. His work has been recognized by the annual Allen Ginsberg Awards and the James Hurst Poetry Prize, the Arts and Letters Prize, Best of the Net, and among others. His chapter book, Uncommon Denominators, won the Palanquin Poetry Series Award from the University of South Carolina, Aiken. Alongside these publications and many others, Rosal has also gained many accomplishments, such as being awarded a Fulbright Senior Research Fellowship to the Philippines in 2009, as well as a Guggenheim Fellowship in 2017. He taught creative writing at Bloomfield College, where he previously earned his BA, and has twice served on the faculty of Kundiman's Summer Retreat for Asian American Poets. In addition to conducting workshops in Alabama prisons through Auburn University, he has taught high school workshops with the Geraldine R. Dodge Foundation, Sarah Lawrence College's Summer's Writing Conference for high school students, Urban Word NYC, and the volume workshops in Ann Arbor, Michigan. His poetry collection, my favorite, The Last Thing, New and Selected Poems, serves as a strong representation of his own experiences, the experiences of his family, and how the fickleness of the human memory conflicts with such experiences. Additionally, it demonstrates how the complexity of the human condition and our tendency towards destruction, in many forms both towards ourselves and others, often gets in our way when living. The burden of being honest about being human often exposes not only the most vulnerable pieces of ourselves, but of humankind as an entire whole. We fight to find beauty in an ugly world. For, as The Last Thing says, if we're lucky, sometimes both the darkness and the laughter are our own. This is America. If we've no choice but sing in multitude no better than the soul of a wrongly punished dog, may God for once not grant us many more things as foolish as that, given the way we ruin our guts on rusted steel and bloom. In many of his poems, alongside the discussion of humankind's tendency towards cruelty, he balances these subjects with those of tenderness. He has the ability to write about soft subjects loudly and intimacy with vibrant honesty, but never without wit. As my favorite of his poems, Check Incantation on the Occasion of Being Classified as Inadmissible, on page 41, says, we as people are all too groovy to be so goddamn grave. It is only through art that we may understand that graveness and that grooviness, of course, and how they come together to make us fully human. So now, please let us welcome Patrick Rosal, and may he teach us about being human.
What's up, everybody? It's so nice to see so many folks out here. And I know this is a taxing time in the semester. How many of you are getting your final projects ready? Look, everybody, I'm just gonna sit here and check out. That's all right, that's cool. I wanted to thank the Georgia Poetry Circuit for, I'm a week and a half through. I've only got 2 more schools after this one. It's just been amazing to meet writers from across this state, and on top of that, to be able to see the beauty of this place, absolute beauty. I mean, from Savannah all the way to Young Harris, where I just came from, and then this beautiful campus as well. It's just really a tremendous gift. In fact, one of the gifts of my career has been the fact that I've been able to travel many, many, many different places, not the least of which is the birthplace of my parents, which is the Philippines. I wanted to start with, it was such a beautiful morning, and then it started raining. And it's raining a lot more. I don't know about what the weather has been like here in northern Georgia, but certainly in New Jersey, it's not just rained more, but rained harder and gotten scarier. When I was on my Fulbright in 2009, it started to drizzle a little bit like this on a Friday afternoon. And the news said that we were about to get the worst storm in 100 years. It ended up being Typhoon Undoy, which indeed was the worst storm the country had seen in 100 years. God bless you. 2 years later, the country experienced one worse than that. And then a year later after that, or a few years later, there was one even worse than that. And so, the evidence is mounting. So this is a true story of what happened in that particular typhoon. Anybody here studying to become a teacher? Amazing, amazing. This is for you all. Typhoon poem. The teacher can't hear the children over all of this monsoon racket. Bazillion spoons whacking the rusty roofs. The wicked tin streams flipping full-grown bucks off their hooves. Everywhere there used to be a river, there's a bigger river now. Every hard face on the block is sopping. Even the court where girls from St. Ignominius ran the roughneck boys off to play their own 3-on-3 in plaid skirts and church shoes for cash, forget it. The whole city's a flash flood with brawn enough to flush trucks sideways down the capital's widest drives. The crushed tonnage bobs around a bit at the foot of some Spanish bastard statue before it stalls and pools on white church steps. Brute pilgrims, face it! Paddling dogs won't make it! So children got no shot! But quick thinking. This teacher lashes her students 2 at a time with wire and stray twine. She binds them across their breasts to trees and metal posts lining the streets half-flooded walk. No goddamn way, she swears. She won't let one little one be washed out, even if their wriggling makes their armpits bleed. They'll have to make peace with the vision of their uncles and neighbors' blue bodies bumping past before they fishtail out of sight. You can't wish away the deluge. You can't vanish the bloated carnage waters. But the types in crew cuts and pigtails, still fastened to shafts and trunks in ragged rows, will survive. For now, their teacher has made them safe by building an orchard of them in the middle of a city road. This small chorus of young, hard fruit, this little grove moment. Parece que se cae, pero no se cae. Parece que se cae, pero no se cae. At the tribunal. Once, in a brawl on Orchard, I clocked the kid with a rich hand so hard I could feel his top teeth give. His knees buckled, and my homeboy let loose a 1-2 to finish the job. I turned around to block a sucker punch that didn't come. We ducked under the cops' bright red hatchets that swung around the corner. I never saw the first kid drop. He must have been still falling when I dipped from the scene and trotted toward Delancey. He was falling when I stopped to check my leather for scuff marks. He was falling when I slipped inside a dive to hide from a girl who got ghosted for books. He was falling when I kissed the Santo Niño's white feet and Melanie's left collarbone and the forehead of one punk whose nose I busted for nothing but squaring off with me. His head snapped back to show his neck smooth pelt. Look away long enough, and a boy can fall for weeks, decades, even as you get down on one knee to pray the rotting kidneys in your mom's gut don't turn too quick to stone. I didn't stick around to watch my own work. I didn't wait for a single body to hit the pavement. In those days, it was always spring, and I was mostly made of knives. I rolled 22 deep, every one of us lulled by a blade, though few of us knew the steel note that chimed a full measure. If you slid the edge along around to make it keen, I'll tell those stiffs in frocks to go ahead and count me among the ones who made nothing good with his bare hands. I'll confess, I love the wreckage, no matter the country, no matter the machine. I'm going to read a poem for a great artist named Sekou Sundiata. In some ways, I'm sad that Sekou didn't leave behind any books. He was a great poet. If you go back, you'll probably find him on YouTube. He was on HBO Deaf Poetry. But to just call him a spoken word poet really diminishes what his contribution to our world of the imagination was and is. His ability to summon a black diasporic aesthetic into a contemporary New York City that was made up of so many different kinds of us together. To find a form, an improvisation, a ritual of gathering when we were taught to despise one another. His work was love itself. And he did everything. Music, theater, dance, poetry. He was a great teacher. When I was a young poet in New York City, he reached out to me. He wanted to do a collaboration together. We never got to do that because Sekou died that following summer. This is a poem about the summer that I got the news of his death. I happened to be in the Dominican Republic. I was actually the minister for my friend's wedding. And I don't usually go to resorts, but because the wedding was on the resort, I was staying there. And I had a book by my friend Araceli's Girmay with me. And when I went to go to the commissary to eat, I saw a man there playing the guitar. And because I don't do the usual resort things, I thought, you know what, I'd love to play guitar for the whole week that I'm here. So I got to talking to this guy and I traded a book, Araceli's book, for this guitar. This is for Sekou. Sundiata Elegy. Sekou, only weeks after you died, I met a man named Elman at a resort in Puerto Plata. His job, to stand at the commissary entrance every day to make sure the guests had properly paid and didn't show up naked for breakfast. Elman studied French history, wrote in Creole, and every morning stepped into his beige company issue khakis to welcome as a sort of friendly sentry the Dutch, the English, the well-to-do American. He'd raised his several siblings himself and sent each week what money he could to his family in Port-au-Prince. Every morning, we chatted in Spanish like two men met in common exile, quick to open the doors of their inner laughter. The afternoon we first talked, I offered him a book of poems, which he took, not as a gift, but in bargain. I'd heard Elman several times singing, strumming a beat-up steel string, and asked if I could perhaps take the guitar just a couple days until I left, and would he hold this book in the meantime as collateral, to which he twice said yes. And for a day and a half, I was the one son of a bitch on Hispaniola singing with my cracked voice a full repertoire of corny ballads. At one point, a man named Angel, who folded towels at the main pool, came up to me on the beach, shushed me, and took the guitar away. Then, as if to make further good on his name, he sang to me, "Quisiera ser un pez," offering that ancient wish with all the sweetness of flesh and honey. After he held the instrument at arm's length, gazing into it as if he himself had cut and planed its wood. Clearly, it wasn't so much the guitar he admired, but all the hands through which it had passed. Angel began to name for me not just Elman, but every one of a half dozen men working at the resort who shared this guitar. Busboy, custodian, bartender, musicians, all of them. Javier, Berto, Santiago, and Rocky, the blind masseuse who claimed to hear things we could merely see. Each man keeping the guitar for some time, then relinquishing it to the next man until it was his turn to hold it an hour, or as I had, a couple days at most. And Angel knew the guitar must have been older than the oldest of all the workers, smuggled into lovers' bedrooms, banged around in cramped buses in the back rooms of saloons. Angel shoved the guitar back into my arms and told me to sing on it. The morning of my flight home, I found Elman at the entrance of the commissary reading to a woman from the book I left him, which I told him to keep, as if our trade were even fair in the first place. He put it down to make room for the guitar in his lap. I thanked him again and shook each of his hands goodbye. As I walked off, Elmon drew a chord across the strings, and the woman, with her eyes still locked on him, sprang up, snapped her chin over her shoulder, and tipped her hips in rhythm a few times, even her small collapse into laughter on beat to Elmon's bachata croon. Sometimes I wonder if music isn't just another version of light, slowed down enough for the living to dance with the living. Brother, wherever you are, I like to think you'll ask a pretty lady to dance with you tonight. If so, I hope you'll listen for the distant music of borrowed guitar. Surely you've been waiting for news, so I'll tell you this. It's cold in Georgia and raining hard, so that a million strings right now shimmer through the alleys of this place. You had a gift for hearing what the rest of us could only see. You took up a whole nation's rage with two good hands and heaved it above your head, hauled it down our boulevards, bore it on your back with this adagio throb of blue dream and steel. You turned it all into song. I know this much. There is a man in Puerto Plata who can tell me everything I need to know about the history of France in a language his great-grandfathers made up. I've come back to live in someone else's house in the richest country in the universe. None of us belongs anywhere without love. Everything has begun to die. Some of us keep shouting your name. How are we doing? Checked out. Any basketball fan? Only a few? The year that Kobe Bryant retired, as teams made their way into LA to play the Lakers, they would bring gifts to Kobe because it was going to be the last time they played against him in his house. And I was lucky enough that when the Brooklyn Nets decided to put together a package of gifts for Kobe, they found out that Kobe loved to read and write poetry. Kobe was a kind of a brilliant dude. He spoke Italian. He might have spoken Greek too. Might have spoken Japanese a little bit. But the fact that he read and wrote poems was new to me. So the Nets asked a bunch of Brooklyn-based poets to write poems for Kobe. And they put them in a book. And at halftime, when Brooklyn went to go play LA, they gave him a bunch of Nets gear, and they gave him a book of poems by Brooklyn poets. And my poem, this poem I'm about to read, was a poem that I had written for Kobe. What's interesting to me, there's a bunch of interesting things to me about this. One is, when he got all the Nets gear and stuff like that, I said, "Oh, cool, thank you, man, thank you." Kobe was mad gracious. And then the dude gave him the poems, the book of poems. So he's like, he said, "You said these are poems?" He said, "Yeah." And then he got the gear. He said, "Oh, thank you." He said, "But this this poem, right? I'm definitely going to check this out. He's really into it. I tell the story in part because I'm bragging. And also, because there's images in this poem that after Kobe died, people thought that I had written this poem and was trying to capitalize on his death. But the images in this poem were all written when he was still alive. The image of the widow and the daughter is an image of two people who were sitting next to me on a plane when I was headed to Nicaragua and I was still writing this poem. So I just need people to know that. When people read this book, they don't know that, but I need you all to know that. Okay? On the elevation of earthlings, a hymn to Kobe Bryant. Kobe, a man can't make a planet or craft a galaxy with his bare hands, but he can jab step on the wing to juke a dude so hard out of his crotch he bolts into a second orbit. I'm saying, a man can make whole worlds out of a crowd's stillness if the stillness is the preface to all. If that man hangs in the air, not by gallows or noose, but by his own muscle and wish. I once floated 36,000 feet into the Brooklyn sky and looked down on every cloud above Lefferts Gardens, the Heights, Bed-Stuy, Lower Merion too. Truth is, I just flew round trip to the tropics when I sat in the same row with a woman and her 6-year-old girl whose father they lowered into the ground not 10 months earlier. The daughter clutched one rose in each fist, as if these two blooms were the secret engines propelling everything that leaves the earth. What a gift then, when she serenaded me with 3 tunes in 3 languages, and both our laughter after each one. We might not know who or what we'll meet when we get up high enough over the ordinary rooms into extraordinary love. But sometimes we bear witness to a body in flight and for a moment know what to do with half our human sorrow. I'm only one of millions who have seen you bang once toward the baseline, then rise before 50,000 eyes that stare up into the middle heavens, where your lean frame engraves a space for a higher, though vanishing, plane where reason and mathematics get all the laws and formulas wrong. Just look at our faces, Kobe. We are what singing looks like before the song. It's going to be 2 more. What's that? Or somebody's popping their gun. From basketball to dice, I like to think that all my awards and all that shit. My true contribution to American literature is that I believe that I'm the first one to enter a literary lyric about mixed martial arts. And I believe that this is the first one about CeeLo. Anybody play CeeLo? It's a dice game. It's a 3 dice game. You usually play it on the corner. You usually lose a lot of money. Unless you're hustling. My friends were great CeeLo players. Or maybe they were cheating. Ode to the CeeLo players. Any day, give me this nasty static, street flies, this blunt smoke ghosting overhead. This brother right here who slaps half his rent against the brick wall and won't flinch once, though his phone's blowing up. Right now, no orchestra, jasmine, no honey hit parade could snatch him from this huddle of petty thieves and shit talkers, trading fire. Sorrow is a kindling too. This smoldering without wicks becomes us if only we didn't burn so fine, standing still cipher where there's no truth like a shooter's hot hand gone cold, where you learn the rules by watching how stones and cash trade places quick, and some hustlers are so good they flip the grins of giddy princes. Know that I have crouched among boys whose blistering wit jacks the master alphabet the cannons have handed them. We have been the young bucks with bear, no standards and rep no set, save the galactic brotherhood whose initiates have wrung blood from their own sleeves into public sinks. Here on the avenues of chance, no one plays alone for dollars and rocks. Our anthems redraw heaven, hell, and the corner shop. We have risked more than a clutch of crumpled singles in our fists. This is what dice does to us. We kneel in semicircle, we perfect the slick lean into the toss. We hone the wrists flick and snap our fingers on every sweet trip's run. Some rules you can't write down. From above, we must sound like we're speaking in foreign tongues. Half this game is calling out our numbers before they even come. All right, one more. All right, I'm gonna end with this one because I know that the end of the chain of the Appalachians is right here. This takes place just outside of Nashville. I was about to teach in Texas, and so I was driving from New Jersey with all my shit in my car. And not for nothing, this is before GPS. So I got lost when I was in Tennessee, and I had to pull over. And I think that's all you need to know. Oh, this is another poem where a woman broke up with me, but that's Thank you all for coming to this meeting, this time of year especially. I really appreciate you being here. And Sandy and Clint, thank you. We had a great dinner, and meeting the writers was just, it's so, it's refreshing to think with young people. And so everybody who's in that class too, I really appreciate you all. Thank you so much. A town called Sadness. On the 5th day of heartbreak, driving 800 miles to the desert, I pulled into sadness. I parked slantways across 2 stalls, lost as ever, and checked the map for something familiar. I rolled into the lot of what looked like a hotel, this big blonde brick building, maybe 5 stories tall, every window the same except for one, flung wide open with a man shoved halfway through, wearing a tank top stretched just past his belly button and a good 6-day scruff on his chin. "Get in here, Diane," he barked. "Bring your ass inside." And Diane, she must have been 11 or so, stood in sagging socks, just 2 parking spots down, staring into the blacktop. I think she knew what I knew too. The day sucked. Even the sky looked like secondhand cotton smeared with cheap mascara. But here's the kicker. Diane's right fist was shoved inside the bold, bright bell of a big, shiny French horn. Its tubes and curves wound toward her mouth. She figured out how not to let it slip from her hip, and it was gleaming so hard, this bad overcast hanging above us all, cantankerous windbag included, conceded some of the day's space to this one hunched-shouldered child clutching a little dazzling galaxy of voluptuous metal. Some of us are lucky enough to arrive at sadness with our eyes open. Some of us were born there with lungs enough to blow. It's as good as any place to put silver to your lips and kiss the world with a blare, even when the world's got it out for you, even if you're wearing knee socks, tore-up kicks, and an ill-fitting skirt that isn't designed after the sky. In sadness, the sky is the design. You don't even have to pull it over your head. I wasn't supposed to get my heart broke. I wasn't supposed to fuck it up. I wasn't supposed to say good night. I don't know why I didn't stay long enough to see if Diane got her ass inside. Or if she walked away. I like to think she went on blasting the most curvaceous brass passage she wanted to practice all afternoon, daring someone, anyone, to come and drag her back. I dropped my car into gear and sped out onto the highway. I made it to the city limits. I passed the exit for Hope. I made my way to the desert. It was just one day, of course, but it was the day I counted myself smart enough to stop in a town I couldn't find in any map. It was the day I got moving soon enough that there was no end to joy. Thank you.
We have some time for questions. If you have a question, I'll bring you the mic.
Thanks for the introduction, guys.
Of course, thank you so much.
Thank
I was going to ask, as someone who has now read all of these pieces and had kind of a, because the way you use line breaks and the way you use punctuation is very particular. And so I was curious how when reading it out loud, because I feel like reading it out loud, the line breaks change a little bit than what they are written. And if that's a choice after you've written it, if you know that while you're writing it, how it's going to sound when it's read out loud, or if that's a decision you make as you're reading it out loud, if that makes sense. Does it? Does it not?
It does. It's a great question. I think that my answer is that you all tell me what loud. A poem is a living thing. And when a poet and an audience get together in a place, you're listening together to this thing that was made before you all got there. In the instance of listening, in the specificity of gathering, the variety of listening, the journey of your ear, teaches me where the line is, and everything else. The register, the dynamics. I don't read that poem the same way every time. It's not a rhythm. It's a spirit. You all are a part of that spirit, which is why I stopped. Because I can feel people's breath. And you can too. It sounds like bullshit. You know that. When you go into a classroom and things are like, damn, it feels good to be here. That's your spirit. This takes a skill. What you do sitting there, listening to people who work at this craft and this skill, that's also work. You can get better at this, just like I can get better at this. So the words on the page are only a partially made thing as far as I'm concerned. And then we have an incredible opportunity each time. So the line breaks happen to be one of the mechanical aspects of the thing that we collaborate on. Does that make sense? You're a theater person, so I know you dig it.
I do, I totally do. Thank you.
So listening to several of your poems, it seems that you're often like most poets, it's like you find a situation in every day and it inspires you to write a whole poem on it. Is it the oddness of the situations that the poems seem to present, at least the ones you read tonight, or is it like specific details that catch your mind, or is it just whatever kind of whim you find yourself in?
I love the strange. I was born a weirdo. And so the oddness has something to do with it, I think. But there ain't nothing that's not odd. If I ask any one of you, everybody's like, uh-oh. If I ask any one of you to stand up, there's an oddness about it. So y'all are giggling because you know it's true. Watch. The difference between a poet and a non-poet, among other things. One is the attention to the audience. And the second is the curiosity about that audience, not the judgment. So when something stands out, I think one of the impulses is to indict, but does not fit. The poet can't afford to indict, because that oddness might be a source of discovery of something that he or she does not yet know. In fact, the recognition, the description, the sudden language for that thing that is odd might be the beginning of love. What is a metaphor but the bringing together of two seemingly unlike things and finding the path to help them travel across to one another? How is the architecture of the lover and the beloved any different? The lover, the beloved, and that which stands between. Really similar structures in here and up here. The beloved is surprising. It's how we stay in love. A lot of marriages fail because people are convinced that they know their partner. I think that love continues because they continue to be a mystery. So the oddness has a lot of picture. Yes.
I noticed like throughout the poems you read today, you had like a lot of like references to music, singing, dancing, things like that. Is that, and I sort of have two questions, is that a normal occurrence in all your poems, or was it specific to that? And why do you choose kind of that path to follow if it is?
Yeah. I grew up around a lot of music and musicians. That's really that's the easiest answer. We all have different vocabulary, and music happens to be one of the vocabularies, one of the lexicons that I draw from. Even before I was writing poems, I was deeply haunted by music. And so its energy and its lexicon are a part of the material that I build. My cousin, he drives a truck in Georgia. His lexicon, if he were to write a poem, would be about the heavy machinery just telling me a story about how he was in the basket of a boom and how the machine went haywire. He started getting swung like this, back and forth, almost against the tree. I said, did they figure out what happened? He said, yeah, you know the teeth on the crank did it. That's not the language of music or b-boying or dance. That's the language of work. It's also poetry. So it just happens to be the lexicon out of which I compose.
In our class earlier, you talked about how listening is a big part of it for you, and feeling out sounds and figuring out which one is the most compelling to you and provides the most pleasure to your ears in terms of sounds. I've noticed quite a lot of consonants with the letter E, and I'm wondering if that's something that you find yourself drawn to, or are there other things you find yourself drawn to in your writing that come up a lot?
Maybe it's bullshit. I love, plosives are like really, they're dynamic sounds. And I think that I probably have, maybe even to a fault, I have a predilection towards that. So, all right, now I'm going to write a poem all L. You're self-conscious. Yeah, I think that probably that there are probably sounds. Listen, I'm Asian. Asians are supposed to be quiet. I ain't quiet. B's are close. And of the sonic vocabulary in the English language, it's a pretty good sounding noise. Very percussive. So probably drawn to that. It's pushing against it.
We have time for another question or two.
What? Sorry.
That's a sound.
What led you to write poetry, and why do you keep writing it?
I ain't writing it right now. I'm going to be real honest. I couldn't afford to go to conservatory. I wanted to be a composer and a jazz. I'm a self-taught composer. I feel very, very lucky that I've been able to return to it. And throughout the course of my life, I now befriended many mentors and friends who are among the best of our composers and musicians. But at the time, in my teens and my 20s, my mom was sick and dying. We were solidly working to middle class. There's just studying at the conservatory. Some of them maybe have seriously studied classical music. It costs money to do. My wife grew up broke in Collegiate. She's a conservatory trained soprano. We talk about this all the time. Both of us are involved in art forms that are traditionally meant for people who have needs. I happened to go to a college eventually where a lot of working class and folks of color were studying together, and whose teachers said that now poetry belongs to them. And it was at a moment when I was in my mid-20s, and the dream of being a composer, a symphonic composer, a Hollywood composer, just wasn't going to happen. And I'll save you the long, I told a somewhat longer version of it in the class today, but the teacher was able to show me that composing a melodic line, composing a poetic line, have direct correlations. And I was able to follow the sound of language the way that I was able to follow the sound of an improvised line, the sound of a melodic line, or the sound of a contrapuntal line. And so really, I don't even think at this point in my creative life, I don't imagine them as separate disciplines. You know? The practice is almost exactly the same. It's just that the instrument is different. It makes different kinds of sound, different textures. But goddamn, they're so similar in the way that it moves my mind and my heart, in the way that it makes me pay attention to the people and the things that are what keeps me going. It confounds me. It confounds me the way that love confounds me. It's a good kind of confusion. Sometimes that kind of confusion, bless you, is a pretty good one. I think that's what it is. Even if I don't achieve that.
Any last questions? Are we ready for the final question? This is a ritual that we hold no responsibility.
Every single me, but it will end with me. Thanks for being so kind as to give this lovely audience your thoughts and feelings on Beyonce. Yeah, it'd be great.
That's the answer. I mean, besides the fact that I'm in love. I mean, not for nothing, man. I admire her since Destiny's Child. I mean, I go that far back. I'll be honest, I have not been as close of a follower of her in the last, decade and a half. But I try to catch what she's doing. I actually haven't listened to this latest album. I'm shutting out there's so much goddamn noise about Beyonce online. Like, I just want to be able to enjoy or like assess for myself. But from what I see, I love what she's trying to do. You know? She's trying to stretch out. What that's counterbalanced by is that she's also a brand. And so there's a whole like a kind of high polished production that I kind of have to get through in order to get to like what I really love inside of the music. And I'm also just, because I was a DJ, I'm kind of all about the deep cuts. And so while everybody's paying attention to Beyonce, I'm listening to Matthew Shipp. Everybody's like, who the hell is that Matthew Shipp? Then you Google him, find out who Matthew Shipp is. He's not on our can. It's just a little bit of my own. It's just sort of my own attention. I go to Beyonce. I appreciate it. I love it. I calculate the whole trajectory of what she's done with this incredible career, and then I turn because in some ways it's my job. It's a promise that I made to my art and my imagination that I was going to pay attention to things and people that don't get it. So, back to the question.